every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go take down the trail.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
And welcome back to Ultiworld's live coverage of the 2016 Northwest Challenge. I'm Keith Rayner, joined in the booth by Katie Reynolds, and we have our final here for you in the women's division. The University of British Columbia Thunderbirds will be taking on Oregon Fugue. Both teams undefeated this weekend. Katie, we've got two teams that have really been strong in all of their efforts. Who do you think is the favorite in this game as we head into it?
You know, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I've got to go with Oregon here. They bested UBC when they saw each other at Stanford Invite. It was a close match, and I expect a really close match here again, despite the conditions, which both teams are used to. But my money is still on Oregon.
And, you know, this is the format of this tournament, a little non-traditional. It's a 3-day tournament designed to simulate the feel of nationals. You have 2 or 3 games on Friday, 2 or 3 games on Saturday, and then you play into qualifier games on Sunday. The way it's structured here is that after 2 pools of 5 were divided into the top 3 and bottom 2, there were crossover games between those groups. So both of these teams have played against the top 3 finishers from each of the other pools, and now will take each other on after undefeated efforts to get here, which gives us a de facto final. Stanford, the team that took on Oregon last round, could not fight back from a hole, and Oregon able to get a win there, 12-9, and UBC able to defeat Whitman 15-10. So both of these teams coming off nice wins over top competition, and these are both teams eyeing a title. Both Northwest squads as well, so a lot to talk about with these teams. And as we are coming down the home stretch of the regular season, you know, this is the final game of our weekend here, and then one more weekend prior to the postseason beginning.
You know, these teams know each other really well. They've certainly thrown surprises at each other in the past, but I expect to see some matchups that both teams are familiar with here. You know, and I think it's going to be a tight race. I just think back to their experiences together last season, you know, with UBC going out in the semifinals, despite actually upsetting Oregon at this very tournament last year.
Yeah, UBC successfully winning the Northwest Challenge in their second try, defeating Oregon last year, and kind of positioning themselves as a team that we expected to do quite well at nationals. And then during pool play, an injury to Mira Donaldson looked like it could have shot those chances for them, but they really rose to the occasion and managed their way through quarterfinals and put together a very strong semifinal performance, even though if it was ultimately unsuccessful. But there's such a strong core for both of these teams, a lot of returners, a lot of faces we've come to know as impact players, and it's no wonder that they started the season number 1 and number 2 in the rankings.
You know, one of the biggest pickups for UBC this year has been Kate Scarth coming over from Victoria for a graduate year. Huge playmaker coming off the All-Star Tour this last summer. It's got to be a huge asset already for UBC, even just her first year with them on this team.
And there we see her getting her first touch of the disc. She discs over to Mira Donaldson. Isolation from Naomi Morcilla, but she drops the open throw. And now Oregon trying to get a break right away. Brunick up the line to Foley Galvin. Galvin resetting to Caitlin Brunick. There's that high release lefty backhand. She uses to great effect, and she finds Bethany Taylor. She and Donaldson with a great battle last year, and there a great block by Naomi Morcilla gets it right back. And now the speedster's taking off. You can bet Donaldson's going to jack that one. Backhand in front of her. Morcilla in chase. Look at the speed of Naomi Morcilla to reel that one in. And they're going to say she's not in. So we're going to get a little free ultimate here. And they cannot complete it. Morcillo with their second turnover already. Missing there for Joanna Lowe, and a tough red zone mistake. It's going to give Oregon another shot at a break. Bill Hansen up ahead to Kaler. Now looking for Gabby Ofterheide, but that's going to be a turnover. And now in their third possession of the point, the Thunderbirds are going to try and get a hold. And the conditions have been variable today. We've seen rain, wind in varying amounts. Now we've got a light rain and very little wind as Donaldson fires to the end zone, looking for Scarth on the back line, but it's going to tail away from her. And we'll see how the conditions play out over the course of this game and what impact that has.
Yeah, I've got a cutting line upfield for Oregon here that I don't think is as used to cutting together here with Ofterheide. You got Kaler there, but there was some miscommunication in their last possession. I would love to see a few cleaner, more confident choices from them.
Yeah, some traditional O-line players not on the field, some for injury reasons, such as Alex Odie and Serafina Angstad-Lido, as we see Scarth contesting that reset to Hansen. Olivia Bartroff, another one missing, as Victoria McCann gets a block for UBC, and they'll get another shot. Donaldson directing traffic in the backfield. Muddy conditions in the middle, and it's been tough sledding for teams looking to plant hard and get a reset cut. Here's Scarth, open side throw. And a scoober from Victoria McCann into the hands of Mira Donaldson will get a hard-fought hold for UBC. They'll take a 1-0 lead early on in this one. And Katie, we already got started talking a little bit about some of the players to watch on these two teams as we see Oregon put out their first offensive line. Who are the players you'd say we should be looking for Fugue?
For Fugue, I would say that Ella Hansen's had a breakout weekend, absolutely. Particularly, I would say Schaffner's had not a banner weekend, but you've always got to watch her when she's on the field because you can expect her to make plays.
And some of the impact players for this UBC offense will be Mira Donaldson and Victoria McCann. We see them connecting there. McCann usually on the receiving end of Donaldson's throws, but has some throws of her own.
And they've got some young talent this year particularly. We've got Paige Muir, who's a rookie cutter for them, but was on the U19 All-Star team for Canada. Julia Zhang, who's also a U19 All-Star. So you've got some young legs here, which really show that they're getting a talented pipeline for this Canadian team.
Yeah, and we've really seen that play out for UBC, who has essentially a monopoly on Canadian youth talent, particularly on the West Coast for them. Nearly everybody who can goes to UBC, and then they get an influx of not only talented players, but players who've played together for an extensive amount of time. And now we're starting to see those players get to the upper parts of this team's roster, and you see players like Vic McCann who have benefited from that time together, and it's given them a deep and skilled offensive unit. Here's Schaffner with Paige Muir in coverage. That's a tough matchup for the rookie, and we'll see how she handles it. Here's Hansen up ahead to Maggie Kennedy. Kennedy, the Wisconsin transfer, with a reset back to Lillian Weaver. Now into the hands of Ella Hansen. Hansen up line to Schaffner. Schaffner immediately fakes and goes to the break side for Kennedy for the goal, and a much easier hold for Oregon, and that makes it 1-1.
Great goal from Kennedy, who was on the U23 team, but has struggled with injury for several years now, and has got to be excited to be able to be playing and being part of this Oregon offense here.
We'll take another look at Kennedy on the score. The sophomore has struggled with injuries this season and probably is not at 100%, but here, smartly using the break side to get open for her second reception and first score.
We talk a lot about the Seattle Youth Ultimate scene, and I've got to give a shout out. Maggie Kennedy is actually the product of the Illinois Youth Ultimate scene, coming up through that Midwest program that's quickly developing, and thought she was going to stay in the Midwest with Wisconsin, but she's really found her home out here with Fugue.
Yeah, and it was funny, during the offseason, we found out about Kate Scarth joining UBC, and obviously a big pickup as a grad student. And it was like Oregon had to answer that, and they're like, I guess we'll just get Maggie Kennedy. We'll just take a 20-year-old U23 player so that we can keep up. But both players are already making an impact here, and we'll see if either can help their team claim a victory and the title of Northwest Challenge champion. Oregon putting out a D-line here, and both teams looking to get the first break. Oregon's first defensive possession, pretty successful on the defensive end, but the offense left something to be desired. And now a backhand force from Oregon, maybe looking to take away some of the set plays that UBC likes, and there they get a turn out of it. Vic McCann losing sight of the disc and letting it slip through her hands. Now here's Caitlin Brunick. Nice grab by Weaver in the middle over Scarth. Break side to Kaler. Kaler back to Brunick. Bounces it to Kaler. Weaver. And nice inside break there from after ID to the freshman Caldwell. Caldwell looking for an option. Great bailout by Weaver. She's making quite a few plays this point, and the handlers are really going to work for Oregon. Slow goings, but they're taking it with great patience right now. There's after ID. Deshina Weaver. Kaler up line. 3 yards out now, and she'll go into the end zone. And she's going to find her target. It's going to be Emily Fagan, the freshman, with the goal for Oregon. And the first break of the game, first blood goes to Fugue. 2-1, they lead.
And yet another impressive point from Bethany Taylor. I know we talk about her a lot, but you watch, her last game of the weekend. She's been taking some of the toughest matchups this weekend on every team that they play. She essentially guards the star, and you see her there on Donaldson, and she's playing so much this weekend. You'd think that she'd start to have a few more errors on the weekend.
And Kaler's such a consistent force for this for this Oregon team, and really her ability to win her matchups against nearly anybody is just something so hard for other teams to cope with. And it's exciting to get to see her and Donaldson match up. They really had sparks fly last year when they battled at the Northwest Challenge. And I saw Mira Donaldson play a level of defense I really had not seen her play during her college career. And I think that she really gets up for that matchup as well. These are two of the best college players in the country over the past 3 seasons, really going at it. It's exciting to see them really, really take on a one-on-one fight that's going to have a huge impact on the course of this game. Ella Hansen ready to pull for this D-line. And UBC will send out a new grouping here after the break. They're playing with a couple of different personnel groups, and we see Jess Chung with the disc.
Still high talent, Jess Chung, also on the Canadian U23 team this past summer. So she's got some confidence there in the backfield.
And the sophomore ripping a backhand to her teammate from that Team Canada squad. Another sophomore, Janelle Siwa, with the sky for the grab, and that's a whole 2-2 between UBC and Oregon.
And I believe Siwa was struggling with a couple injuries earlier this weekend, so it's good to see she's out there on the field.
And Siwa can do it in both the backfield and the downfield, and here we see a great upline cut from Chung to set up the power position, and Siwa just goes over the top of the smaller Bartruff with a great grab. And both of these players are a product of that pipeline, that Vancouver youth ultimate scene, really just injecting talent every season into UBC. And it's no surprise to see them climbing back to the top of the college women's game. And it doesn't look like there's any reason to expect them to fall.
You know, I think a few years ago the conversation was Donaldson is excellent, Donaldson is great, but can the rest of her team keep up? And I think last year they really proved that they could, and now we see this strong youth pipeline coming through, and it gives me confidence for this program after Donaldson is gone that they're still going to be a name in this conversation for years to come.
As UBC puts out a D-line, and nearly every one of these players is coming out of that same system. So that you can tell that not only, like we said, do they have talent and experience, but they have chemistry, and that is so valuable for these teams in such high margin opportunities. And there's a shot to Jessie Schaffner, deep from Ella Hansen. She dishes back to Bartruff, and now Oregon in the red zone, and a nice throw there from Schaffner to Bartruff. They go to work in the red zone very often. Bartruff, a well-known goal scorer, and the IO break from Schaffner hits her for a Oregon hold.
Really fast, confident point there from Oregon, and that's what we've seen most of this weekend. So, kind of a long haul in the last game, but I would love to see them just ramp up this pace and take control of this game.
We'll take another look at this one. Here's Schaffner and Bartruff, a little two-woman game, and great throw there from Schaffner, and great awareness from Bartruff to realize that she was still a viable target. Some players will clear out there with their head down, and Bartruff has the awareness to catch the goal. And the conclusion here to a long weekend this game, Katie. We've had a 3-day tournament, and it's one of the valuable things for these teams to get from going to the Northwest Challenge is to get that kind of practice nationals. These Northwest teams, because of the strength of the region, are always confident that not only will they be at nationals, but that they will be in the conversation when we come down to elimination play. And they are given this opportunity through the creation of the Northwest Challenge, which is now in its third year. And I think it better prepares these teams for success at nationals. And here we see Donaldson in isolation against Kaler. Nice denial for her continue options. It's Emma Madden Krasnick she finds, and here's more Scylla. The sophomore looking for an option. High in the stall count, she's forced to throw a scoober up, and Kaler has no problem batting it down. Oregon in the hunt for a second break here. Kaler going deep, shot goes up, McCann and chase, and a great block there from McCann in the air. Now Donaldson trying to march her team back. And a nice throw into space over the top to Kate Scarth. Scarth looking deep, but a miscommunication with the cutter. It's going to generate another turn. Brunick just floating one out there, looking for Hershey, and Scarth getting in the air for that block. And into the end zone. That one's going to sail a little too far.
Nice thought, but it was a little bit of gusty wind that is not a guaranteed throw.
Megan Zhu chasing after that one, but ultimately it'll go back into the hands of the Oregon defense. And given right back now, a short field for UBC, who's going to look to punch in this red zone possession for a hold. And a scoober from Donaldson over the top to Madden Krasnick. Gets on that hold. 3-3 between Oregon and UBC.
And probably not the offense you want to see from Oregon. A couple questionable choices there. Love the deep look to Kaler. I think she gets that 4 out of 5 times. But, some of those looks you just can't afford to have if you're trying to take control of this game and run away with it.
Take another look at the Donaldson scoober. Sees a target over the top and confidently drops that in for Madden Krasnick. And I think some of the issues you're seeing with Oregon's D-line offense may stem from the injuries they have, keeping some of their best options after the turn off the field. You know, they've really had to put a lot onto Bethany Taylor and Caitlin Brunick this weekend, as they're missing both Haley Walrus and Alex Odie, as well as Serafina Angstad-Lido. And all of those missing bodies are key contributors, and that just really challenges their top end to deliver from a skill standpoint.
And I think they absolutely have delivered. You know, you see a rough few, failures to convert there, and it's easy to expand that out. But they've had an absolutely fantastic weekend, and particularly Brunick has really, really stepped into that back handler role and been fairly reliable for Oregon on getting some of these breaks.
Brunick really broke out last season as the team started giving her a bit more responsibility with the graduation of some handlers, and the lefty thrower has a real eye for the break side. We'll see Lillian Weaver field this pull. And an isolation set here for Jesse Schaffner. Paige Muir again in coverage, and Schaffner bids to try and save that, but UBC gets the turn. Here's Eleanor Young firing a backhand, looking for her freshman teammate, and it's Allie Moore with the score. A UBC break makes it 4-3. Last year's Rookie of the Year hits another strong young UBC player. We'll take another look at this play. And UBC's youth coming up huge during this point. Eleanor Young picking up the disc and really confidently launching that backhand to the back corner. And Moore hauls it in. And you see three players involved in both getting the turn and then completing the break, all of whom are sophomores and freshmen. Paige Muir drawing the matchup with the fifth-year senior Jesse Schaffner and able to get the turn with some help over the top. And then All Young finding Moore in the end zone.
You see tired legs throughout this weekend and you watch UBC, you don't see that they've played the same number of games as all these other teams. You know, they've always been a pretty young, fast team, and that youth and that quickness is showing in this game. And I think they have the potential to really grind downfield, and outlast Oregon if they can hold on to this break.
And these two teams have played twice this season, both at the Stanford Invite. UBC winning their first matchup by just a single point, or Oregon, winning their first matchup by a single point, but then in consolation play, UBC dominating Oregon 15-8. And here's that Oregon isolation off the pull, looking for Schaffner, again defended well by Moore, but now through some continues to other players, Fugue is in the red zone. Great reset defense, but Jesse Schaffner digs out one with a bid and then throws a nice around backhand to Maggie Kennedy for her second goal, and that's an Oregon hold, making it 4-4. And we've seen a great job by UBC's defense to deny the initial look out of the Oregon side stack. They really like to isolate Bartruff, Schaffner, and Kaler, but Oregon has had the resilience to find a second option in some of those cases, and that's helping generate them scores. Let's take another look at Schaffner with a layout grab to save this one. High stall situation, and then doesn't even get all the way up before she tosses that one to the break side to Kennedy for the goal.
Speaking of the UBC defense, just watching Julia Zhang on that mark on Hansen, really denying her those around options and forcing her to take that tougher throw. Sometimes it's those little things in the defense which lets everyone downfield really do their job. And an impressive mark, from again, a young rookie with all-star experience.
And both of these Northwest Powers with new coaching staffs, Jeff Cruikshank's a Vancouver legend, and personally one of my favorite players to watch as a young player when I was growing up. has taken over the mantle for UBC from Tasia Balding, while Katie Weatherhead has gotten the promotion from assistant coach up to the head coach after Lou Burris made his exit from the Fugue sidelines. So both teams undergoing some changes on the sidelines, even if their rosters have a lot of similarities. Here's Donaldson again, generating an under to get things started for UBC. Some clogged resets, but Megan Zhang tries to go up the line and nicely disrupted there by Foley Galvin. Galvin has played well on the defensive end. She missed earlier action this weekend. And another player playing well on the defensive end, Naomi Morcilla with her second block, and she does what she does best, streaking deep, Schaffner and chase, and Donaldson gets it to Morcilla for the goal. 5-4, UBC leads, and that is a big play by Naomi Morcilla.
What an incredible run. And with Schaffner right on your back, no less. We've seen that speed from her already twice in this game. Let's see it again.
The run-through block, and Morcilla knows that she's got the throwers to hit her in the deep space. Donaldson picks it up and puts it out in front. Great throw as well. Schaffner with an excellent individual effort to try and get there, but Morcilla fights her off.
And that's one of those 1-2 punches you get just from playing together, you know, and Morcilla can get that D, and she just does not stop running because she knows that Donaldson's going to pick that up and crank that D.
And Morcilla, a sophomore, is certainly going to be in the conversation for a breakout player of the year. And it's funny to see her and Schaffner match up in the deep lanes. It was actually Morcilla who took on the Schaffner matchup at the Northwest Challenge when these teams played last year. Morcilla has excellent speed and quickness, and that was the answer that UBC thought could solve Jessie Schaffner. And she did a pretty admirable job last year in limiting Schaffner's opportunities.
Keith, I think it'd be really telling for UBC's future if, you know, we had last year as Ellen O. Young as our Rookie of the Year, and if we had a real breakout Player of the Year conversation for UBC this year. It really shows the potential for this team and how high their ceiling really could be.
Yeah, it's definitely possible you'll see one of the Rookie of the Year selections or runners-up from this UBC team, and they've had one of those each of the past 2 seasons. Ella Hansen firing for Jessie Schaffner. Hansen, another player in that conversation. She was a runner-up last year, and you see why as she jacks one to Schaffner for a quick one-throw hole. But going back to what we were saying, UBC has had a player on that award list for each of the past 2 seasons. Victoria McCann was a runner-up 2 years ago. Eleanor Young wins the award last year. And on the other side, Oregon's the same way. Ella Hansen, a runner-up. So we see her putting that backhand out to space. Schaffner with so much separation. She finally got away from Moore, who's been a pesky defender. No over-the-top there help there for Moore. Or Muir, excuse me. But Oregon, prior to that, had actually won it. So these 2 teams have traded off runners-up and winners of the Rookie of the Year for the past 2 years. Oregon's Rookie of the Year from 2 years ago, Haley Walrus, not able to play in this game. They're hoping to get her back by regionals, the electrifying handler and All-Star Ultimate alumna.
I think everyone still, you know, even 2 years out, you hear the name Walrus and you still think about that Sports Center diving catch. And that's still, for me personally, a big moment in women's ultimate and, you know, and in the college division and a breakout, you know, and I think that's still something people look at her as a player and she's really developed and come into her own, but I think people still think of that catch when they hear her name. I know, I certainly do.
I can very clearly remember Stuart Scott's call for that highlight. Really a great moment for Women's Ultimate, and there, not a great moment for this UBC offense. A turf throw from Mira Donaldson is going to give Oregon a midfield possession with a look at a break. Bartruff coming under. Finds Kaler on that far sideline, and again we see Donaldson matched up with her. Hansen. Inside break against Scarth. What a throw, and who else is on the other end but Olivia Bartruff? A break for Oregon makes it 6-5, and we've got a great back and forth affair between two of the best teams in the country. Or I guess you should say two of the best teams in the division. I think UBC would take issue with saying they're in the country. Hansen getting that on the inside and then really drops low to fire that break in.
And what a compliment to the weekend that Ella Hansen's been having, that, that Kate Scarth is on that mark and, putting one of your top players on Hansen and saying this is the person that we need to shut down.
Yeah, Ella Hansen is, despite being one of the standouts last year, has grown even that much more in her second year with Fugue. She's got the power to make great throws. She's got a great ultimate IQ. It allows her to get great blocks. She really takes on a key position as a deep in their zone, which is a lot of responsibility, something she took on last year as a freshman. And that allows them to put their other athletes in places where they can get blocks. But a lot of trust has been placed on Ella Hansen by this Fugue team, and she clearly, along with Haley Walrus, is in a position to inherit that star position on the most notable program in women's college ultimate. A long line of stars from this Fugue team, and with Beth Taylor and Jessie Schaffner prepared to graduate after this season, there will be big shoes to fill. Eleanor Young working with this UBC offense. Over to Scarth. Scarth puts one towards the end zone, and Galvin gets another block. She has been all over the field for Fugue. And they are hoping to get a 2-point lead, the largest of this game. Up 6-5 now. And Kaler in the middle of the field. Resetting out to Weaver. And now Brunick. Brunick backhand to space for Ofterheide. She finds Brunick in the backfield with McCann in coverage. Break side throw. It hangs. Kaler fights off Chung to get the goal, or get the grab, excuse me. Dish from Kaler. Great job by Brunick to recognize the break side after Kaler gets up the line. Gets Weaver. She continues to the break side after a couple fakes. Now Oregon into the end zone for a break for the bookends for Foley Galvin. Beth Kaler on the assist with the high release forehand to give Oregon a 7-5 lead over UBC.
Great hustle from Oregon there, particularly from Galvin, really pushing the pace. You could see her, sometimes you don't talk about the cuts that don't get the disc necessarily, but you saw her grinding downfield to create space for Oregon in a way that sometimes in some of these earlier games they were not having those second and third cuts that were creating that space and making things happen.
No surprise to see UBC take a timeout here and talk about some of the adjustments they need to make. And one of those adjustments may be, hey, let's stop throwing it anywhere near Foley Galvin, because she is racking up blocks. Galvin, a role player with this Oregon team, but one that they feel very strongly about. I've certainly over the past couple of years had external observers say that we need to be talking about Foley Galvin more because she's really one of the players is at the heart of this Oregon team. They look to her as an emotional leader, and obviously are glad to have her back on the field after she missed the last couple of days of play. And certainly after 3 days of play, it's easy for these two teams to be running out of gas, but even without a ton on the line for them, they both have to feel pretty comfortable about where they're going headed into the postseason. You can tell they both want it. This is an important game for them, and there's certainly a sense of something at stake between these two teams. A lot of pride in this rivalry that's grown out of the team's proximity and success.
Absolutely. I think these teams recognize that they're well matched, and particularly last season, I think UBC taking down Oregon in what had been an absolute banner season, even for Oregon. I think Fugue took that really personally, and even up by this many breaks, you've got to think Oregon's saying never enough, not enough, particularly against this UBC squad. I think UBC brings out the best in Oregon.
And even after a 4-loss regular season prior to this tournament, Oregon is still your reigning champion. And in many ways, you have to assume if you're trying to win a national title, you're probably going to have to go through this Fugue team. And for UBC, who gets a couple shots at them each year, you want to make sure you know what the game plan is for Oregon, because really all roads go through this crew from Eugene. And an offsides call against Oregon is going to set up a second pull. And I'll just stump for Charlie Eisenhood, Ultiworld senior editor. I know he loves the soapbox of the offense should be able to reject the offsides call here. I don't think this would be a situation in which they do it, but adamant that this rule should be that the offense can turn down the reset pull if they think the pull is advantageous to them. Pretty logical.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not something, I don't think that's a rule that a lot of teams are familiar with, or I imagine that we would see that happening a lot more than we do.
Well, the reason I think teams are unfamiliar with it is because it only takes place in observed games. Very limited sample sizes for teams to have experience with that situation. And ISO said here, Morsilla now on the throwing end, looking for Ah Young. And she tries to get up for it, but the pressure from Emily Fagan, the defender, forces Ah Young to go up early, and that throw a little too blady, but Scart's going to get it back in a short field. And she'll target Ah Young. And that one comes off her hands, a tough grab. She had to really extend and stab out for that one, but Ah Young unable to come up with it. And now a huck the other way. We're seeing them come fast and furious. Schaffner catches it over her all-star teammate, Kate Scarth, and continues on the field. Now she's just outside the end zone. And the around break to Olivia Bartra for another Bartra goal. That's going to take us to the halftime break. Oregon with an 8-5 lead over UBC. Can the Thunderbirds come back? We'll find out in the second half. We're going to take a quick break as well.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our green line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
And welcome back to Ultiworld's live coverage of the 2016 Northwest Challenge. And we are here in overcast Burlington, Washington with Keith Rayner, that's me, joined by Katie Reynolds, that's her. We've got Oregon and UBC locked in one here. Oregon pushing their advantage in the back end of the first half. We'll hold an 8-5 lead as we get things started. Both teams undefeated so far in their Northwest Challenge efforts, and it's likely the team to win this game will not only win this tournament, but win the #1 ranking as a prize heading into the postseason. Would not be a surprise at all to see these two teams matching up again in the final of Northwest Regionals, and that game will likely have the #1 seeding at Nationals on the line. we're a long way from that, though, Katie. We got this half in front of us and then an entire postseason.
So, Keith, what do you think UBC needs to do to close this margin and come back and make this, a closer margin fight?
Well, they've had a couple of pretty soft red zone turnovers. They need to really get tighter on how they're executing in the red zone. You'd also like to see their defense executing a little bit better after the turn. I wouldn't be surprised if they mix up the looks a little bit. One of the only ways to stop this exact thing, which is a wide open Jesse Schaffner running down a Caitlin Brunick for a 9-5 hold and a signature kick spike. One of the best ways to stop that is to get out of straight person-to-person. Jesse Schaffner has made that same isolation, jab step under, charge deep move a couple of times, and it's worked almost every time. Let's take another look at how she sets up this deep cut. Here you see her just juke out two defenders and has 25 yards of separation by the time she gets to the disc. And earlier we saw Paige Muir, the rookie from UBC, doing quite well in that matchup, but the reason was because she could front Schaffner out of that stack and had some help over the top. I don't know where that help has gone, but Schaffner and this Oregon offense have found a way to beat that strategy, and UBC is going to need to make an adjustment or else they're not going to be able to generate the breaks they're looking for.
And I think some of that comes from recognizing who you're on. When you're marking Jesse Schaffner and she does that hard fake under, you bite on it, but if you bite that hard, you know that she wants to go deep, particularly on some of these pull plays that at this point, having played them so much, UBC knows that Oregon likes.
Well, that's really the trouble with trying to guard Jesse Schaffner is if you're going to give her the deep space, she's going to exploit it. If she comes under, she's just as likely to hit Olivia Bartroff going away with a great huck. And that's difficult to defend. If I were them, I certainly would rather her be taking those shots than being on the receiving end of them, especially if she's going to be so wide open. We'll see what the adjustments are. Here we see a pretty similar look from UBC as they try and find some isolation space. And they find Donaldson upfield. Now she'll hit McCann coming underneath. And McCann putting an OI forehand to the back of the end zone. A bid from Ofterheide's not going to stop Lowe from catching the goal. Joanna Lowe gets a hold here for UBC. And that'll make it 9-6.
Much cleaner offensive point than we've seen in the first half from UBC. Great undercut from Victoria McCann. We'll see that coming down here. Confident grab from Lowe, even with Ofterheide coming down on that.
And McCann, known for her cutting, but certainly has never been shy about using her throws. She is a dynamic offensive threat. And last year, essentially, the play used to be, let's give it to Donaldson and let Vic McCann go to work. And I think UBC would get probably 3 or 4 goals a game that way. In the same way that you're seeing Oregon, in kind of a mirror image, use Jesse Schaffner and Olivia Bartroff on the other end. So these two teams really using their top-end talent to put defenders on islands. And I'm wondering when we're going to see a team go away from the person-to-person defense and find a way to help each other out instead of going one-on-one, because the offenses are winning those.
But if you look at, last year I know UBC pulled out some new defenses come nationals. And so is it in their best interest to maybe still play person in this game and maybe not win it if they can bring out a zone look that Oregon hasn't seen in nationals and have that make all the difference?
Yeah, the mental chess match here between the coaching staffs trying to figure out what to use and when. Taylor gets open on Cindy Lee in the underspace, and now we did see some success out of this defense, which denies some of the initial looks and generates a turnover in the reset space. And we'll see if their D-line offense can get them the first of a number of breaks they'll need to get back. Here's Eleanor Young just a few steps away from a goal. Resets in the middle to Muir. Muir, inside break there to Young, and Tough grab, bounces off of her, and now Oregon gets a reprieve. Schaffner, open side, throw to space for Kaler. She's got a target going deep. Kaler, back shoulder huck, looking for the freshman Morgan Caldwell, but Caldwell tries to run it out, but Kaler's throw kind of leaving her cutter out to dry.
That's a tough adjustment. You can see Caldwell turning on that shoulder, but then when that throw tails over you, it's hard to make that play.
Not a lot of first-year players on Oregon's roster. Caldwell, one of the few. She's played quite a bit. All young. The second year looking for a target. She finds Cindy Lee. Lee, wide open cutter. Allie Moore catches her second goal of the game. And that's a UBC break to bring the lead back to 2. Oregon still up 9-7, but UBC getting it started here in the second half.
I've got to say, looking at this, and we were talking about the different defensive looks that they've got. Actually, let's take a look at this again.
All young, just opening up the field there with 2 targets, and they continue on for the score. Lee finding more for the break.
A great fast break from UBC there. Capitalizing on a few Oregon mistakes.
And All Young, the Rookie of the Year last year, it really has been given the keys to the D-line offense, and that's such a valuable asset to have from just a second-year player, really taking on a role that Taryn Shand filled a lot for this team last season. And All Young has been happy to take so much responsibility, so talented and explosive. She's a great one-on-one defender and able to use her quickness and skill to move the offense the other way after the turn.
And there have been years where we watch UBC and a lot of the big throws are just coming from Donaldson. And this year you're seeing them come from All Young, you're seeing them come from Kate Scarth, and that really lets them open up that deep space in a way other teams have to respect. And
a hybrid line here from UBC, about 5 of these 7 players traditionally on their O-line, and we'll see what that might mean. I wonder if it'll mean a mix-up in the defense. Does change some matchups. Morsilla will be with Schaffner, and she takes away their first options. Well done by UBC's defense. Here's Lanning to Schaffner in the middle. They're going to make Oregon work the field here rather than get there in a couple throws. Bartruff underneath. Weaver with Donaldson on her.
Couple slips in the mud downfield.
It's tough sledding in the middle of the field. It's slippery conditions, and we've seen a number of players take to the ground trying to change directions. Here's Brunick blading one into the middle. Bartruff gets there first. Dishes to Weaver, and now they're knocking on the doorstep, and Bartruff in the end zone. Unreal how often Olivia Bartruff finds space in the end zone. I mean, it's just got to be her second home. Like, she got to pay rent there or something. She spends so much time just catching discs in the end zone. She's got a nose for the goal. It's hard to coach that.
Absolutely, and I think it's interesting to see one person have so many goals on a team that's really, really deep. You'd think you'd see more of those players hitting that end zone, but why would they go there? When you know that Bartruff is going to be open in an ISO play.
Really, over these past 2 years, no one's been able to figure out how to guard Olivia Bartruff within 10 yards of the end zone.
I think when you're facing Oregon, you've got so many problems and so many players you have to figure out how to shut down, and she's quickly rising on that list, but I think for so many years it's let's put our best player on Kaler, our second best player on Schaffner. Oh God, now we have to guard 3, 4, and 5, and that's part of what makes this team so dangerous is you have to put all these strong matchups, and other teams don't quite have the players who can dance that dance.
And I that's something you see across really elite teams. With the men's division, you talk about someone like Christian Pitts for Pittsburgh, who benefits from having the 4th best defender on him. But you see this a bit of the same thing here potentially for Bartruff, but eventually teams have to figure out what matchups they want. And here the Oregon defense a little confused about their matchups. Some open players on UBC helps them advance past midfield. Here's Marcilla. And a run through D by Rachel Hershey. Kate Scarth coming from upfield, but Hershey explodes through that disc. And now we see that trademark fast break offense from Oregon trying to go the other way. Here's Brunick. The lefty goes to the break side for Kaler. Up the middle again to Oftridy. They're really taking control at the point of attack, getting off break throws regularly. Kaler to Oftridy. Schaffner on the sideline yelling tempo for her team, and you can tell how important it is for Fugue to control the pace after a turnover. And just off the hands of Hansen, that went into the end zone. A great look for Oregon. A nice look at a break, but no dice.
We've had a couple disappointing turns this game, but I don't think that's a turn. I think that's a turn they're okay with, you know. They push that pace, and sometimes it doesn't connect, and I'm sure they would have loved to there, but I think they're counting on getting it back.
Donaldson checking the disc in on her own goal line. Morcilla taking off deep. Donaldson's going to put it up. Morcilla with lots of separation. I don't know if there's confusion or intent behind how Oregon playing defense, but twice they have lost a UBC player, but UBC has not been able to capitalize on this point. And there, another turnover from the Oregon defense. It's going to give UBC a third shot at a hold. Kate Scarth able to get open on that far sideline. Continuing up the field to Mavis Huang. Huang resetting to Donaldson. Donaldson looking downfield and sees a target on the break side and drops a money hammer over the top to Mavis Huang for the goal. And that's what you get with Muriel Donaldson, is someone who can see the field and hit it in nearly all areas and gets UBC a hold. 10-8, Oregon still leads.
What an incredible option.
Take another look at this throw from Mira Donaldson. You can tell how she won the Offensive Player of the Year award just a couple seasons ago. Poke fun at Mavis Huang for one of my favorite pet peeves in Ultimate, the score ground check. Completely unnecessary, but
relic of a bygone era.
I remember those days when I was in high school and people would ground check scores and we were all confused, and some people wanted to do it, some people didn't. We thought it was style choice, but no, there's actual reason.
Funny, I remember that from my middle school days, Keith.
Oh. I don't think middle school Ultimate existed when I was that age.
Different coasts, different coasts.
Maybe, yes, that's for sure. We've got a Seattle product in the booth with me. I'm from just a little old school in Atlanta. A lot of these players have been playing for middle school and even earlier, so the experience is thick on these two rosters. Isolation set looking for Jessie Schaffner, and she'll get that one past Moore. Nicely thrown by Hansen, and I don't even know if I need to say it. It's an Oregon goal. You can put together the rest. 11-8, Oregon leads.
Love to see, I was going to say, some of the Jessie Schaffner cutting on that isolation play. You just can't guard those cuts.
And Schaffner, a hard fake, and Hansen, I maybe this is intentional, maybe not, throws it with enough distance to get over the initial defender, but not hanging enough that a help defender could get there. And that's a heady play from Hansen, and then Bartruff attacking the disc in the air to make sure that she comes away with a score. And we've seen some adjustments from the UBC defense to make these isolation plays harder, but Oregon is not going to fold just because of a poach or a little help D. They're still able to find their targets and still able to get a hold.
Absolutely. You haven't even seen, I think, a force change from UBC here. I think they're still counting on winning some of these matchups with their legs. You know, you see Eleanor Young on Bartruff, and that's a good matchup. You know, it's one you want to see grind, but you've got to think they've got to challenge Oregon with something new and force them to change their game.
Both teams have been pretty straightforward person to person, maybe a little poaching here and there, but nobody's really gone to a full-fledged zone in this game. These two teams are just going to try and out-muscle each other, and Vic McCann with a nice counter underneath after Morcilla's deep cut drags some defenders, and Morcilla now able to get open underneath as well. Madden Krasnick on that far sideline. Into the middle of Scarth. And there's a hammer over to Donaldson. Kaler on the mark, and a poach in the lane. Trying to take away some of Donaldson's options. Nice, smart cut up the line there from Donaldson. Such a long stride. She covers ground quickly, and again she'll go to the hammer, and again it's to Huang, but this time Schaffner sees it up. Comes down with the block.
You fool her once, shame on you, but you're not going to fool Schaffner twice with that trick.
And now Schaffner looking to help her team get a break. Extend the lead to 4. Matching the largest lead of the game. Here's Schaffner with Scarth in coverage. Donaldson considers a bid, but Kaler makes sure to come away with that one. Up line, Schaffner. Back corner is where she likes it, and she's going to put it up for Hershey, but it's a little too high. And having watched Jessie Schaffner play a lot of Ultimate in my lifetime, I think the defenses have to know you have to make her throw that forehand there, because that back corner backhand is a staple of the Oregon offense, and particularly Jessie Schaffner style of play, and you want to take that element away from them. And teams often will over-pursue because she's so good at getting up the line.
And, you know, I think that's a throw that Kate Scarth knew that she wanted there, and maybe Scarth just hadn't quite set her mark. And given a stall count or two more, you know Scarth's going to adjust for that. She knows Schaffner well, as also having played All-Star with her.
And here's a forehand shot from McCann, and a attempted grab there from Huang, but not going to be a completion. And another chance at a break for Oregon. Schaffner and Hansen initiating. And Donaldson with a poach block gets it back after Schaffner got her earlier. And now they got a matchup switch here. We'll see if this matters here for this point. Morcilla open, and easy continue to Madden Krasnick, who's forced to toe the line but makes the play. 11-9 after that hold. And, man, if you aren't paying attention on camera, keep your eye on this Beth Kaler and Mira Donaldson matchup, because it is just a real treat to watch these two battle it out in the lanes.
After so many years, it's got to, again, you talked about a mental chess match earlier. This is almost a physical chess match. You know, they know where each other wants to go, and they know their skills, and it's trying to change each other's game on a personal, individual level.
And one thing that both Kaler and Donaldson excel at is playing help defense. There are very few players who can not only shut down their girl, but also understand the field position well enough to make plays on other people's marks. You know, that it's a really intricate skill for these players that's born out of years and years of playing and seeing so many situations. And I think Kaler's one of the best players I've ever seen at this. But she manages to defend 2 to 3 options during the course of a possession while shutting down her girl. It's really an incredible skill that she has, and Donaldson has shown that she is developing that as well. saw it there with that poach block to help UBC get the hold, but they still are facing a 2-point deficit. You see about 20 minutes left in this game before the soft cap, and a Galvin bid is not going to save possession there. UBC, a chance at a break, and Jessie Schaffner says no, and she's wide open the other way, but a drop from Hope Zima is going to give another break opportunity. 2 bad turns from Fugue to start this point, and now Moore tries to stuff one through the middle, and another block for Schaffner. And the teams are exchanging turns at this point, and UBC maybe looking to slow things down a little bit and get organized.
This is a very young line out here for UBC, and you can see that in maybe some of their decisions when they get the chance to convert here.
And here's a shot over the top, and Maggie Kennedy is the only one around. Another turnover here, and after some great offensive points, now both teams are a little mired in it right now. And here's Schaffner trying to make something happen. Big backhand, looking for Kennedy. Got separation, two-handed bid for Kennedy, and another goal for Maggie Kennedy, who has had to struggle with injuries, but she's showing she can still make some plays. The Wisconsin transfer with the goal to make it 12-9.
She's absolutely been a little bit more of a role player, kind of a second or third in those pull plays. But you see here with this goal, she knows how to get the job done when she's in that end zone.
Schaffner putting that out in front, and Kennedy making sure to get two hands on it despite having to dive. And got to be frustrating for the UBC coaching staff as they take a timeout. You get 3 looks at a break, all of them on your attacking half of the field, and you come away with nothing. That is not good enough against Oregon. And we've seen UBC struggle in some of these late game situations. You know, they have given up some of these leads that they've had and made games really close. Now they're forced to play from behind, and we'll see how they adjust to that.
I mean, you've just got to wonder, again, whether or not UBC is playing the long game here, you know, giving some of their rookies that defensive experience to have them try to get those breaks. We know what an incredible defensive player Donaldson is, but to not have her on that line, you got to think maybe you're, you know, having those younger players try to get a crack at it.
And now Oregon is starting to put some pressure on UBC as they're just 3 points away from winning the Northwest Challenge. It's 12-9, Oregon leads. A little over 17 minutes till soft cap, so likely we will get the full stretch on this one, especially with how quick these offenses are liable to strike. And the maybe intentionally rolling pull puts them on the sideline. It is hard to execute isolation plays from there. And now Donaldson holding. Morcilla wide open up the sideline, and they'll continue to stuff it up that part of the field. Here's McCann. She's got an OI forehand and a wide open Kate Scarth. And the former Victoria star one-hands it into the end zone to make it 12-10. And Katie, if you are UBC in this situation, do you think you cross over some of this offensive talent to your D-line to get you some of these needed breaks?
I think so. You know, it's late in the day and it's late in the game, and, you know, you've got a long rest after this. Why not try to grab those breaks and grind the rest of this game out? Particularly, you know, UBC is going to be trying to come at you, and you could see in that point, Kate Scarth had a lot of separation.
And a fake timeout last time, but UBC taking it this time, knowing that these are key points. Oregon going into their timeout cheer. Anytime their opponent takes a timeout, they will scream, "They took a timeout!" Kind of like that. And then they'll do what I believe is their school fight song. So using this to get fired up.
And I think that's when Oregon is at their absolute best, is when they're fired up and they're pumped and they feel like they have something to push and fight against, and they turn that internally to, motivate themselves to finish out this game strong. They know that they've got UBC on the ropes.
And what a weekend we've seen out of this Fugue team. Short-handed, missing some really strong players, and yet, despite that, here they are, holding the advantage late in the day against a very strong competitor, and potentially they're going to come away from the Northwest Challenge with nothing but green in their score reporter page.
And probably the #1 ranking that they've truly earned here, for the division. And they've been swimming right under that for most of this season with a couple of those losses. But if there's ever a time to peak, this is a pretty good time to show what you're made of.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our green line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
We're going to take another look at this Maggie Kennedy score. Check out this bid. Kennedy getting horizontal and deserving the big spike there. Former U23 player, played with Chicago Nemesis, a Midwest product, and kind of looked like she was going to be, a Midwest born and bred elite club player, and I'm sure they were sorry to see her go, transferring to the University of Oregon. But here she is making plays for Fugue and hoping to get to her first college championships and maybe her first title.
It's her former teammate. I'm proud that she's healthy and able to get some minutes out there, and I think sometimes that's the best thing you can get when you're an elite athlete. It just feels good to play.
And here we go with another isolation for Schaffner and Bartroff. Morsilla coming over to help in this situation, and now they're targeting Kennedy again. Can she do it again? McCann with the little bit of a kick block there. Soccer background for the junior out of Pennsylvania. And now Eleanor Young up the line, nicely defended by Bartroff, and Donaldson goes to the middle for Zhang. Now she'll go over to Muir. Muir with nobody within 20 yards of her. Resets to All Young in the middle. Continues to Donaldson, and All Young's going to work, but Weaver sights up that one for a poach interception. And now she's putting it back into space for Jesse Schaffner, who calmly runs onto that. And that'll be 13 for Oregon, 10 for British Columbia.
What a frustrating point for UBC. You could see them just starting to ramp up their offense coming up this line, but they were not having that choice. Lauren Weaver said, no way, Oregon's taking this point.
And some nice pressure there from Bartroff on the up line cut. All Young got open, but Donaldson put it out in front of her to run on, and maybe you got to deliver that directly to her. And Bartroff's presence probably keeping Donaldson from just driving that throw right into All Young's breadbasket. And hanging out in front obviously worked out for the Oregon defense. Weaver jumping the play. We're getting a little bit of precipitation here to close out the day, only appropriate.
Can't end this weekend with sunshine. It wouldn't be a true Northwest Challenge if there weren't quite a bit of wind and quite a bit of rain.
And manning the camera right now, Multi-World Editor-in-Chief Charlie Eisner. If you think this guy just stands around and delegates, quote-unquote, no, he's in the trenches, folks. Up there in the rain. And the trenches could be where this game is won for these two teams as they battle it out in the mud. And the rain now, it's going to be a little bit of a willpower battle as Madden Krasnick gets it on the open side. Nice cut there from Donaldson. Uses the stutter step to get open on Kaler. Now Donaldson pointing to where she wants her receiver to go. And Ingrid Wynn with the disc, and now Donaldson back in her hands, about 10 yards outside the end zone. She's had a couple of turnovers with the hammer, but not afraid to go back to it. And Yuen with a nice grab, fighting off a defender for a UBC hold. 13-11, UBC's trailing, and as we come down the home stretch of this one.
That's starting to look like that just is UBC's end zone set. It's the Mira Donaldson hammer, but you can see that there's some confusion about that strike cut, forcing her to throw this incredible hammer.
Well, Scart's calling for it. I actually don't think that's what Donaldson was aiming for. I think she was trying to put Scarth to the back corner, and it is really difficult to throw a hammer in the rain. It's a throw that you really need to have a tight grip on the disc because you're really applying a lot of force from the wrist. And in the rain, it's easy for those to slip out. And that one, however, was still caught by UBC.
Gotta wonder if they just practice Mira Donaldson hammers. Have every receiver catch at least 10 before your practice is done.
And they will send back out the UBC D-line.
Very, very young line here.
Primarily, this line may actually be all freshmen and sophomores, actually. Which, I mean, when you can try out that D-line against Oregon, what does that say about the depth and future of your program when you can stick Paige Muir on Jesse Schaffner? Muir, again, on Schaffner. She's got help over the top, and that might have helped misdirect that throw from Ella Hansen. UBC has gotten a couple of looks at breaks here in the second half, and they're running out of opportunities. Oregon just 2 points away. More underneath. Olivia Bartroff gets in for a disruptive block, and a high release backhand from Weaver sends Hansen into the end zone. It'll be game point. Oregon now just one away from UBC's defeat in this final.
You know, I'm not surprised with the, great defense from this young UBC D-line, but, their rookies need experience together.
And here, Moore, despite a great reach compared to Bartroff, not able to hold her off, and Bartroff's speed just breaks up the play, and then Hansen with the awareness to jump that one in for the goal. And, we talked about potentially UBC crossing over some of these O-line players, and it's not because their D-line can't generate turns, it's to get that help after the turn to score. And someone like Kate Scarth or Mira Donaldson might really benefit this O-line at a key point like this. Conversely, you also may just want your D-line to get this experience.
Absolutely, and to get your rookies these experiences, even though most of their rookies have international experience, you've got to make sure that they know how to play together and where to look for each other, and learn that. You see the benefits of that on some of these elite teams between people who've been playing together for so long. Why not give your rookies that experience at the highest level?
Here's Brunick with the roller pull. I think still they're looking to take UBC out of their isolation sets, probably trying to roll it to the sideline. And now Donaldson in the middle. Looks off some open throws, but has a wide open Zoo. And now Morsilla in the middle, bidding off to Heidi. Donaldson, OI backhand, seeking Scarth on the sideline and gets her for the goal. Scarth makes it 12-14, but backs against the wall. UBC needs breaks now. And Scarth, who's really been mostly a center handler for UBC during the season, was really a cutting force at Victoria. And here we're going to take a look at her getting open deep for this Mira Donaldson, break side throw. Runs it out. Scarlett's a great athlete. She certainly is dangerous when she's cutting. And to have her and Donaldson, McCann, all young, all players that can do it inside and out, it makes it really tough to match up with them.
Yeah, we saw from last year's Nationals, Kate Scarth is no stranger to the end zone, and what a diverse weapon to have on this team where, you know, if your offense is looking stagnant downfield, you can get her in the end zone to make it happen for UBC.
And this has to be a really different feeling for Scarth playing with this UBC team. On Victoria, she was really asked to do a lot, and I mean a lot. One of the tops in assists, goals, combinations in Nationals last year, in part because she played almost every point and really was one of the team's premier offensive options. And after an offseason in which she played with the All-Star Ultimate Tour and Traffic, I'm sure she's happy to be in a situation where she's just another cog in the machine and less, you know, the crown jewel. But just a different feeling, and now we are seeing it, Katie. Some crossover from the O-line to the D-line. Mira Donaldson, Naomi Morsilla, and Vic McCann all coming on for this D-line. They'll be joined by Paige Muir, Eleanor Young, Julia Zhang,
Cindy Lee.
And even when they quote unquote stack the line, I mean, it's still, you know, mostly players who can't get a beer in the U.S.
The rain has picked up for this final few points.
Donaldson marshaling the troops here. You can see her discussing on the line what they need to do. And now, as the rain comes down, we get a dramatic finish potentially to this one. McCann taking on Kaler. Kaler open underneath. Muir, nicely done to take away Schaffner, but Bartroff gets open. Now, break side throw from Weaver, but it's over the head of the cutter. And now we'll see what those offensive players can do with this UBCD unit. Donaldson holding. Deep shot. Morsilla by herself. Pulls that one in, and now the offense has something moving forward. And that going to pop off the hands of Julia Zhang. The rain maybe playing a factor in that one. Brunick, break side to Kaler. Middle to Schaffner. Schaffner winds up. Too much traffic. Now looking for the reset. Brunick, not available, and she'll find Bartroff. Open side throw off the hands of Weaver. The game-winning score slipping out of the hands of the Oregon senior. And another shot to stay alive for the Thunderbirds. Donaldson walking into the line. The wind picking up. And that throw is going to be difficult in that condition, and Bartroff intercepts it. And now off to the races is Fugue, Kaler, Schaffner, Kennedy, Bidding. Game. Kennedy with another one in the second half is going to close this one out and make Oregon your Northwest Challenge champion. Took them 3 tries, but they finally won this Pacific Northwest tournament. And you are going to be looking at the #1 team in the country come Monday. Let's take another look at this excellent grab from #1, Maggie Kennedy, running it down, snagging that one, and you see the big spike and the excitement from this Oregon team. They have yet to win a tournament. Well, you can put that behind you. If you thought the days of Oregon dominating were over, you need to think again. This is the team to beat.
Absolutely, and I think that last point, despite some sloppiness coming from that weather, you can just see the confidence in their play. And, you know, coming through this final point, there was no way they weren't going to finish that out strong. They wanted this tournament, and they want that #1 ranking because they deserve it.
And a great slugfest here between this game. Thank you for joining UltiWorld for our live coverage and any coverage you may have followed from the 2016 Northwest Challenge. I'm Keith Rayner. She's Katie Reynolds. Special thanks to all the staff from Multiworld here, including Charlie Eisenhood up in the crow's nest, as well as Jesse Goldstein, who's done a lot of work for us. He's really the real MVP. Thanks, Jesse. We'll see you next time at Regionals.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Every time we touch the license, we play better. Let's go, keep down the field.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.